Okay. All right. Good evening, everybody. This is the June 18th, 2014 meeting of the Planning Board of the Town of Smithtown. We're going to begin it with the Pledge of Allegiance, and we ask you all to join in with us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. The first item on the agenda this evening, the Planning Department recommends the following items for adjournment as we have insufficient information to act upon them. Under Part 1, Item 1, 2011-01, All Seasons Motor Lodge. Item 2, 2012-04, Storybook Homes. Item 3, 2012-02, Carlson Associates. Item 4, 2013-06, Bolo, Long Island Operating Corp. Item 5, 773, Scholar Estates. Item 6, 1139 Jenna Court. Item 7, 288 Olivia Estates. And under Part 2, Item 8, 2010-06 KVC Holdings. Item 9, Case 911A Glen Hill Northern. Mr. Chairman, these are the items the Planning Department recommends for adjournment this evening.
Is there anybody present who wishes to be heard on any of the items which were just read, which the Planning Department is recommending be adjourned tonight? Seeing none, hearing none, a motion, please.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn items 1 through 9 as read on the June 18th calendar.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Motion carries unanimously. Those matters are adjourned.
Mr. Chairman, the next item on the agenda under Part 3, Item 10, is an extension of final approval for Samantha Estates, number 1123. This application was originally heard on June 4th and was adjourned because the applicant did not have the affidavit of posting.
Okay. Please give your name and address and relationship to the applicant.
Steve D'Agostino, 40 Franciscan Lane, Smithtown, New York.
Are you the applicant?
Yes.
And do you have your affidavit of posting?
Yes.
Can you hand it in over to Alex? You want to read the resolution?
Sure. The applicant is requesting a 90-day retroactive extension of the conditional final approval in order to obtain more time to comply with the requirements of posting the performance bond and filing the map. The map of Samantha Estates, 1123, was granted conditional final approval by the Planning Board on May 5, 2010. The Board granted the applicant 8 retroactive 9-day extensions of the final approval on April 3, 2013 that expired on May 5, 2013. On May 2, 2013, August 21, 2013, November 6, 2013, and February 26, 2014, the Board granted a total of 4 additional 90-day extensions of final approval that expired on May 5, 2014, which is 4 years after the original approval. The applicant has indicated that they have delivered to the Town Attorney's Office the remaining open items and documents and are awaiting his review and comments. The Planning Department has no objection to the applicant's request. At a separate hearing tonight, the applicant is requesting an extension of Planning Board performance bond approval. The Planning Department offers the following resolution for the Board's consideration. Be it resolved that the Planning Board hereby grants a 90-day retroactive extension of time to the conditional final approval of the subdivision known as Map of Samantha Estates, 1123, beginning May 5, 2014 through August 5, 2014.
If you heard the review and analysis by the Planning Department and the proposed resolution?
Yes.
Any problems with that?
No.
Okay. Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to be heard on this particular matter? Seeing none, anybody from the board have any questions? Seeing none, motion please.
In the matter of Samantha Estates, number 1123, I move that we adopt the resolution as read in accordance with the recommendation of the Planning Department.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None? Motion carries unanimously. The resolution is adopted. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, the next next item on the agenda under Part 3, Item 11, is the extension of the performance bond estimate approval for Samantha Estates 1123. The applicant is requesting an extension of the performance bond estimate approval in order to be able to post the performance bond and file the map. The approval for the subdivision expired on May 5th, and the matter needs to be placed on a town board meeting agenda. The map of Samantha Estates 1123 was granted conditional final approval by the Planning Board on May 5th, 2010. The board granted the applicant 8 retroactive 90-day extensions of final approval on April 3rd, 2013 that expired on May 5th, 2013. On May 2nd, 2013, August 21st, 2013, November 6th, 2013, and February 26, 2014, the board granted a total of 4 additional 90-day extensions of final approval that expired on May 5th, 2014, which is 4 years after the original approval. The applicant has indicated that they have delivered to the town attorney's office the remaining open items and documents and are waiting review and comments. The performance bond estimate of $161,685 for this subdivision was approved with the subdivision on May 5th, 2010. However, the performance bond has not yet been accepted by the town board because the filing of the map has been delayed. The planning board's approval of the performance bond estimate was valid for a period of 2 years and expired on May 5th, 2012. On April 16, 2014, the planning board granted a retroactive extension of the performance bond approval for a period of 2 years to expire on May 5, 2014. The town attorney has indicated that in order for the town board to accept the performance bond, the planning board's approval of the amount must be up to date. The applicant submitted a request to extend the performance bond approval, and the request was distributed to all concerned departments for review. The engineering, highway, and traffic departments have indicated that they have no objection to the extension of the performance bond approval at the existing amount. The planning department has determined that the street trees and sidewalks are bonded at the current rate. Therefore, the planning department has no objection to extending the performance bond. A 2-year extension would bring the approval to May 5th, 2016. This application was originally heard on June 4th and adjourned to tonight because the applicant did not have the affidavit of posting. The Planning Department offers the following resolution for the board's consideration. Be it resolved that the Planning Board hereby approves a retroactive extension of the performance bond approval for the subdivision known as Samantha Estates 1123 for a period of 2 years to expire on May 5th, 2016.
All right, first, the record should reflect that the appearance of the applicant is the same as it was on the prior application. Sir, do you have your affidavit of posting?
Yes.
It's the same.
Oh, it's the same, okay.
Yeah.
Have you heard the recommendation and the analysis of the planning department
Yes.
and the proposed resolution?
Yes.
You're in agreement with it?
Yes.
Anybody in the audience wish to be heard on this particular matter? Seeing none, motion please.
In the matter of Samantha Estates, number 1123, motion to adopt the resolution as read in accordance with the recommendation of the planning department.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none. Motion carries unanimously. The resolution is adopted. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, the next item on the agenda under Part 3, Item 12, is an extension of performance bond approval for Tahami Plat number 1135. The applicant requests to retroactively extend the performance bond approval for the subdivision known as Tahami Plat 1135 for a period of 2 years to end on January 19, 2015, in order to obtain more time to complete construction and all necessary improvements. The application was approved for this 2-lot subdivision from the Planning Board on January 19, 2011. A performance bond estimate in the amount of $26,444 was approved by the board and subsequently signed by the chairman. The applicant submitted the bond monies and all related materials to the town, and the town board accepted cash in lieu of a performance bond on January 3, 2012. The planning board's approval of this performance bond expired on January 19, 2013. The applicant submitted a performance bond extension application on May 6, 2014 to the planning department, and the application was distributed to all departments concerned for review. The engineering and traffic safety departments have no objection to the performance bond extension request and have determined that the bond amount is sufficient to cover all remaining improvements. The highway department has no comment because this is a private road. Planning has performed an on-site inspection of the subdivision and determined that construction has not yet begun. Therefore, the planning department has no objection to the extension of performance bond approval. The planning department offers the following resolution for the board's consideration. Be it resolved that the planning board hereby approves a retroactive extension of the performance bond for the subdivision known as Tahami Plat for a period of 2 years to expire on January 19, 2015. And there is a waiver request from the same subdivision next on the agenda.
Do you have the affidavit of posting on this matter?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Sir, please state your name, address, and relationship to the applicant.
Mitchell Surowitz, 35 Brangle Brink Road, St. James, and I am the owner.
Okay, and you heard the review and analysis submitted by the planning department
Yes, I did.
and the proposed resolution,
I did.
and you're in agreement with that?
Correct.
Okay. Anybody in the audience who wishes to be heard on this matter? Seeing none, any questions from any member of the board?
Could you please spell your name for the record?
Sure. First name is Mitchell, last name Sirowitz.
Thank you.
Got it?
And are you continuing with the waiver, or there's no?
It's going to be a separate
Gonna be
hearing.
right after this,
Got it.
okay?
Understood.
On this matter, no questions and a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, with regard to Tuhami Plat number 1135, I move that we adopt the extension of the performance bond as proposed by the department.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Motion carries unanimously. The resolution is adopted.
Mr. Chairman, the next item on the agenda under Part 3, Item 13, is a waiver request for Tuhami Plat 1135. The applicant requests to waive the requirement of installing 537 linear feet of sidewalks and to reduce the number of street trees in the subdivision from 15 to 6 within the subdivision known as Tuhami Plat 1135. The map of Tuhami Plat was granted conditional final approval from the Planning Board on January 19, 2011. This application was approved for a 2-lot subdivision on a 2-acre parcel fronting on the south side of Brangle Brink Road, a private road located within the villages of Nissequogue and Head of the Harbor and the town of Smithtown. On May 6, 2014, the applicant of Tuhami Plat submitted a waiver application in order to waive the requirement of installing all 537 linear feet of sidewalks and to reduce the number of street trees from 15 to 6. The applicant has indicated that there are no sidewalks in the area or on this block and that there are existing trees on the street with room for 6 more trees. The engineering and traffic safety departments have no objection to this request, and the highway department has no comment as this is a private road. The planning department has inspected the site and found that this is a small section of private rural road that does not connect to any town road. There are no adjoining sidewalks along Brangle Brink Road in the village of Nissequogue or in the village of Head of the Harbor. With respect to street trees, the planning department has concluded that there are many existing trees along the street. However, it has been the past practice of the board not to entertain waivers of public improvements before the homes are built. This is because residents may buy into a subdivision with the expectation that certain improvements will be completed and should have the opportunity to respond to the waiver request. Additionally, because no clearing has begun for the proposed home, it is difficult to determine which existing trees will survive and how many additional new street trees may be needed. Therefore, it is the position of the planning department that this application is premature. Further, the planning board has previously granted a waiver for this subdivision on October 2, 2013, and it appears the conditions of that waiver have not yet been met. The board granted a waiver of a condition of final approval that required the applicant to execute a maintenance agreement for the maintenance of the road, with the condition that the applicant must file a restrictive covenant for both lots, acknowledging that Brangle Brink Road is not maintained by the town of Smithtown. The town attorney's office confirmed that they have not yet received a covenant to review for this property. Therefore, the planning department would recommend that the board not consider granting any further waivers until the conditions of their previous waivers have been met. In the first instance, the planning department recommends that this case be adjourned, pending the receipt of a declaration of covenants and restrictions on a form acceptable to the town attorney, as required by the board's resolution dated October 2, 2013. And further, the planning department recommends that the waivers be adjourned until the proposed homes are constructed.
All right, the record should reflect that the appearance by the applicant is the same as it was on the prior matter. Sir, have you heard the analysis and the recommendation of the planning department?
Yeah, yes, I did. I'm under the assumption that that was taken care of by Doug Hines on the last hearing, but I could be wrong.
Well-
We did file with the town or,
Well, apparently there are supposed to be some restrictive covenants filed regarding the 2 of the lots as per the prior resolution, but those covenants have to be approved by the town attorney, and according to the planning department, the town attorney doesn't have them yet.
okay.
So we really can't go forward until the town attorney gets those covenants, town attorney reviews them, and they're acceptable to the town attorney.
I understand. I know that they were submitted to be put into the deeds already, and I thought that was taken care of, but I'll check into that.
I believe and the planning department's recommendation, these covenants have to be sent to the town attorney first. Town attorney has to review it and make sure that it meets their approval.
Got it.
Before we can finalize it and the covenants can be filed.
Understood.
Okay, so that's what's going to happen, or that's what has to happen. So what we're going to do, since it hasn't happened, is we're going to adjourn this matter to give you an opportunity to get those covenants to the town attorney and the town attorney to review them, and hopefully at some point they'll be approved and we'll go forward from there.
Gotcha.
Okay? So any body in the audience who wishes to be heard on this matter? All right, seeing none, any questions from any members of the board on
Yeah,
this matter?
what about this maintenance agreement that you were supposed to enter into? Sir?
That maintenance agreement was waived as part of
waived.
the condition that
Okay.
required the covenant.
Okay.
Any other questions? Motion?
Will this be on our next agenda then?
I don't think it'll be on any agenda until he gets the covenants to the town attorney, and the town attorney reviews them and approves them.
And then I have to reapply, or it'll be automatic?
Well, the hearing's going to be adjourned.
I understand that.
You don't have to reapply. The application is still pending. We're not going to pass on it tonight. We're just going to adjourn it to allow you to do what you have to do, so the town attorney can do what they have to do, and then we can do what we have to do.
Understood.
Okay, motion, please?
In the matter of Tahami Plat number 1135, I move that we adjourn this application according to the recommendation of the planning department, and that the waivers be adjourned until the proposed homes are constructed.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? None? The motion carries unanimously. The resolution is adopted. The matter is adjourned. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, the next item on the agenda under Part 3, Item 14 is the waiver application by Steve DeMarco in the subdivision 299 Archer Hills. I'm going to begin on page 5 of your memo where it says June 18th update. This application was last heard on June 4th and adjourned so that the applicant's attorney could be present. In the interim, the town engineer, Mark Riley, has submitted the attached memorandum to the planning board. In it, the town engineer states the approved building permit plans did not address the stormwater runoff from the existing dwelling. The dry well installed was not inspected by their office and did not appear on the approved plans. He states that the size and capacity of the dry well is not known. Therefore, in order to preserve the remainder of the limited access and planting easement, and also to prevent direct discharge of stormwater runoff from the existing dwelling, the town engineer is recommending that the planning board require the applicant to submit amended plans to the building department that address the stormwater runoff concern. This condition is added to both resolutions presented below as Condition B. Below you have the planning department's recommendation, which has not changed. And on the following page is an alternative resolution if the planning board wishes to approve this application in accordance with their May 21st counterproposal. The planning department offers the following resolution for the board's consideration. Be it resolved that the planning board hereby modifies the limited access and planting easement in the subdivision known as Archer Hills 299 within lot number 2 to allow 2 existing 8-foot retaining walls, the relocation of the 4-foot fence, and the clearing of 12 feet of leveled area at the top of the wall, subject to the following conditions. A. Both retaining walls and the fence shall be densely screened from view from the street with a mix of native plantings in accordance with a planting plan to be approved by the planning director. B. Per the engineering department, the applicant will submit amended plans to the building department that address the stormwater runoff to ensure compliance with the town's drainage and stormwater regulations. C. The original fence line established in Condition L of Archer Hills 299 may be relocated no more than 9 feet into the limited access and planting area. In order to minimize the visual contrast and blend into the natural surroundings, the fence shall remain a 4-foot high chain link fence. D. The maximum 9-foot wide leveled area of the easement between the new fence line and the original fence line shall be densely planted with a mix of native trees and vegetation, subject to a planting plan to be approved by the planning director. This area shall remain part of the limited access and planting area, and no structures shall be permitted. And E. The applicant shall file in the office of the Suffolk County Clerk a restrictive covenant on a form acceptable to the town attorney, limiting the use and modifications of the premises consistent with the aforementioned conditions, and acknowledging that this property contains a limited access planting area west of the fence line established by Archer Hills 299, which may not be further modified without approval of the planning board.
Okay, now just, before we get to the applicant and his attorney, just have a couple of questions. Condition B requires the applicant to submit amended plans to address the stormwater runoff issue. Is there any time limit that's contemplated for them to do that? That's my first question. My second question would be, what happens if they submit the plans and for some reason somebody has a problem with them and they don't see eye to eye on it?
In this particular case, I would assume that the town engineer has to give final approval with regard to the retaining walls, which has not yet been done. And if the town engineer does not find them satisfactory, then he will not issue a permit for that.
And what about the issue of the covenants here? Again, let's assume that this passes and the covenant is prepared and the applicant and the town attorney can't agree on the language.
I believe the language of the covenant would come from the conditions you place on the approval.
Well, that's true, but it has to be approved by the town attorney, right? So wouldn't we want to have the exact language of the covenant given to the town attorney to review beforehand? Because let's say this passes now, and they draw up some covenant language, and they give it to the town attorney, and the town attorney says, no, it's not what I want. And they can't agree on it. I'm just saying hypothetically, then what happens? Then we're kind of in limbo.
I think what you're basically asking for is a time limit on this particular proposal, and which we did not place in the resolution. And it would appear that I would recommend that we have a 90-day time limit on these particular actions in order to allow for this approval to take place. 90 days should be sufficient to submit the plans and also get the approvals. And if it's not in agreement, then it has to come back before this board.
As long as it's a mechanism so it can be addressed so that we're not in limbo, if they
No, I
can't agree on either of these two things.
I
Now,
agree. So I would agree, and I think that's why we should put a time limit on this.
That's one way to do it. Another way to do it possibly would be to adjourn it, to let these things be handled first, so that when we come back, we know that it's done. But let's hear what the applicant has to say. Mr. Tremarco, please give your appearance for the record, please.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Vincent Tremarco, Jr. I represent Mr. DeMarco, the applicant. I've been just hearing the dialogue back and forth, and either way we do it, I guess what's been happening is we're continuing with the project. So I don't think it matters to us whether or not you approve it subject to conditions and time limits. That's fine. As far as the language, I'll take that language directly from the planning department and put it into the covenants. We have no problem with that. The location of the fence was the only issue we had. As far as the drainage goes, the engineer, we actually have plans to put the drainage in. It's just not on the plan. So we'll have the architect write that on the plan. It'll be approved by engineering. Again, everything's subject, again, to planning. If you want to make a 90-day mechanism wherein if we don't do it, planning can recommend we come back for a hearing, or just adjourn it for 90 days, we come back, everything's in line. It'll be done, the project will be completed, in accordance with the recommendations or the proposed resolution. I'm sorry.
Isn't that the cleaner way to do
It's essentially already done, yes. The project's underway. The only thing that's not there is really the fence. So we put the fence up, the drainage in, the plan's approved. I guess if he doesn't do it, it'll be subject to some kind of penalty with respect to the planning department. So.
Well, there was a memo submitted by the town engineer, which indicated that they wanted the stormwater runoff issue addressed. Now, have you seen that memorandum?
I have not seen it, but we will follow it to the T.
Dated June 12th.
Yes, no, we have no problem following that and adding the drainage plan to the architectural plans that we've submitted. From what I understand, the drainage, for some reason, didn't make it onto the plan submitted, but we'll fix that problem in accordance with town engineering. We have to do it according to the engineering
Right.
Chairman,
recommendation.
if I might ask, if the applicant already has the drawings done, and all we need is that plus the language that has to be
It could be
done.
for a shorter period, we don't have to go 90 days.
Well, what I'm recommending is why don't we adjourn this, have this for the next meeting?
Right.
That to me is then more direct. If the plans are there, we could have the town engineer review them and the town attorney, we're not talking about very complicated.
Covenant, right, should be
covenant.
relatively straightforward.
And we could have that approval in a package for this board to see.
All right,
And-
so,
30 days anyway.
Oh, I'm saying we
right,
could
the next
easily do.
meeting is July 16th, right?
Yes,
'Cause-
I think
all
we
right.
could have it by that meeting.
Yeah, I don't think we really need to go 90 days, Mr. Tramarko.
That's fine,
Uh,
July
I-
16th.
I think the covenant language, you should be able to work that out with the town attorney's office within a matter of a couple of weeks. And if Mr. DeRubius thinks that if you have the plans drawn up already, the town engineer can go over them and hopefully for you approve them within the next 30 days. Rather than adjourning it for 90 days, I would rather just adjourn it to the next meeting, which is July 16th. Hopefully by then you'll have the covenant worked out and you'll have the plans approved by the town engineer and then we can vote on it.
I think that's fine.
Okay?
That would mean also that the fence would not be installed until we do bring it back to our board and vote on it.
Right, I think what my understanding is the resolution that's on the table now is the fence at 9 foot into the scenic
That's what
easement.
was proposed the last time.
And that's fine, yeah.
Because-
Well, there were two, there was an alternate, there was the recommended resolution plus the alternate.
Well, the planning department wanted it back to where it was. You wanted it 12 feet. We proposed the compromise at 9
9
feet. You said that was acceptable.
Yes.
The planning department said they would work with that. So I guess the question is are you anticipating putting in the fence before the next 30 days?
No, I don't think we need to do
Okay,
that.
no problem. All right.
If it comes to the point we have to put a safety fence up, we will.
Okay, temporary fence.
Right.
All right. Anybody in the audience who wishes to be heard on this matter? Any further questions from any members of the board? Then I think I would ask for a motion to adjourn this matter to our next meeting, which I believe is going to be July 16th, 2014. And hopefully by then, the issues that we've discussed will be resolved and we'll be in a position to vote on this.
Thank you.
Motion, please.
In the matter of Archer Hills, number 299, I move that we adjourn this to July 16th, 2014.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Motion carries unanimously. Matter is adjourned to July 16th. Just follow up with the town attorney on the covenant and with the planning department and the town engineer on the plans. And on July 16th, we'll be hopefully ready to go forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Mr. Chairman, the next item under Part 3 are items 15 and 16, which are two zone change petitions, 2014-02 for Haddington Company, 2014-03 for Sun Enterprises. These are two adjacent parcels that are proposed to be developed together, and so as such, we're going to be holding one hearing for the two. I'm going to begin on page 2 of the memo for Haddington Company, where it begins on number 6, planning considerations. The applicant is requesting a change of zone from WSI Wholesale Industry to NB Neighborhood Business to permit the subject site to be developed in conjunction with two adjacent sites for two retail uses and associated parking. This is a request to amend the comprehensive plan. And I should note the other parcel is a request to rezone from R21 to NB Neighborhood Business.
That's the companion application.
Yes, and we'll show the map for that as well.
Okay.
At the inception of zoning in 1932, the subject site was zoned for residential development, with a strip along Middle Country Road, Route 25, to the south, zoned for A business use. By 1949, with the Nesconset Highway, Route 347 underway, the business zone was reclassified to neighborhood business and slightly expanded at the new intersection of the Nesconset Highway with Middle Country Road, which included this parcel, but not the parcel zoned R21. In 1959, the strip of business use along Middle Country Road was again rezoned to commercial WSI use. This pattern of predominantly residential zoning with industry along Route 25 continued until 1966, when the residential and industrial areas to the east across Alexander Avenue were rezoned to SCB, shopping center business, for the construction of the Smith Haven Mall. The subject site and the adjacent site were not part of that change in zoning. The current zoning and uses adjacent to the site reflect the mix of residential, retail, and wholesale service industry that has existed since the creation of the mall in the 1960s. The subject parcel remains zoned WSI and is occupied by a closed counter-service restaurant. Directly to the south of the subject site on Route 25 are property zoned WSI, developed with an automotive store, Pep Boys. The property to the north is a vacant piece of land that has remained zoned for residential use, and that is the other parcel as part of this application. To the west, at the intersection of Routes 347 and Route 25, are two vacant state-owned parcels zoned WSI. To the east is a vacant parcel rezoned to neighborhood business in 1994. Further to the east is a mix of parcels on Alexander Avenue facing the mall that are zoned residential, WSI, and NB that include a highway yard, single-family homes, and retail stores. The petitioner proposes to develop this site in conjunction with two immediately adjacent sites, the second of which, immediately to the north, is the subject of the zone change petition being heard together with this petition this evening. The third site, not subject to tonight's hearing, is an irregularly shaped, approximately 2.68 acres in size, and adjacent on the east, extending to the north and to the south of the subject site, fronting on both New York State Route 347 and New York State Route 25. Together, these three sites are approximately 4.88 acres in size. Because the two sites being considered this evening are subject to the same planning consideration, the following applies to both sites and is the same in each public hearing memorandum. In the mid-1980s, the town did the Smithtown Mall study, which determined that this roughly triangular area, if assembled, reconfigured, and developed with proper controls, could be used for retail purposes. In the absence of a good design for access and site circulation, however, it is likely that the site would not only be unsafe, but also unsuccessful as a location for retail or similar business. The Checkers restaurant, for example, is now closed in part because of poor access and poor circulation on its own site. The current petitioners have assembled these three pieces of the larger triangle and have presented preliminary plans suggesting that they can design the assembled site to have site access onto and from both New York State Route 347 to the north and New York State Route 25 to the south. The board will want any approval to be based on a detailed plan for circulation within the site and for access onto and from the site. This design will likely include de-acceleration lanes on New York State Routes 347 and 25 for vehicles wishing to enter the site, long throats at the site entrances to provide adequate queuing space for vehicles to get off the roadway quickly and completely, acceleration lanes for vehicles exiting the site, and parking designed to accommodate all users of both businesses proposed for that site. Additionally, a cross-access agreement with the Pep Boys site is recommended, as it would contribute to safer access for both sites and better circulation for this area. On June 13th, the petitioner submitted updated conceptual plans for the combined sites. Those plans are being reviewed to determine whether they meet these objectives, and the State Department of Transportation must also be consulted about access points. There is another issue that must be resolved before the board can make a recommendation on these two requests. The third parcel that makes up the assembled site was the subject of a petition to change the zoning to NB in 1994, change of zone petition 94-03. The approval of that petition in 1995 was made with the condition that affects the development currently proposed because it restricted uses permitted on the property to only those that would be low traffic generators. This would likely rule out retail uses such as the 7-Eleven stores and fast food restaurants. However, the current petitioners do want to develop the assembled parcels with such retail establishments, and they want to be relieved of the restrictions on such uses. With the coordinated design now possible because the three parcels have been assembled, a proposed overall design that incorporates, at a minimum, the elements discussed above and addresses the safe access concerns may persuade the town board to modify the condition on the earlier petition approval. It should be noted that any approval of any of these petitions shall be subject to the recording of a declaration of covenants and restrictions guaranteeing that the site will be developed in full compliance with the site plan on which the approval is based. Conditions on zone change approvals can only be considered by the town board through a new petition to modify the existing condition. On June 13th, the owner of the site submitted most of the materials for a petition to the town board to modify their earlier condition. The petition materials are currently being reviewed to determine whether they provide the detailed roadway and site circulation plan and other information needed for the town board to consider whether the proposed plan is sufficient to warrant removal or amendment of the restrictive condition. The board will want to wait for the town board's action on such a petition before making a recommendation on the two zoning petitions being heard this evening. Additionally, the Planning Department recommends that the Planning Board make site visits to the properties prior to making a determination on the requested change in the zoning district. The following response, dated May 7, 2014, has been received from the Suffolk County Department of Economic Development and Planning. Pursuant to the requirements, sections A14, 14 to 23 of the Suffolk County Administrative Code, the above referenced application, which has been submitted to the Suffolk County Planning Commission, is considered to be a matter for local determination, as there is no apparent significant county-wide or inter-community impacts. A decision of local determination should not be construed as either approval or disapproval. Mr. Chairman, attached to your packet, you have the zoning map for the first parcel here, as well as an aerial map of that parcel. And additionally, you have the zoning map for the second parcel, as well as an aerial map for that, and that's the 2014-03 parcel that's currently zoned R21. Right, it's immediately north of that first parcel, right? The small triangular piece here.
So where it says subject site there, the triangular piece, it's green, it looks like, that's one parcel, and the
Yes.
one directly below it is the other parcel?
Correct.
And which is the one where there was a zone change, but there were conditions that they want to have relief from the conditions?
That's this long parcel
That's the big long
here.
one next to it?
Zone neighborhood business, correct.
All right, everybody got that? All right. You want to read anything for the next one before we let him comment?
No, I believe the memorandum of this is the same.
You don't need to go any further?
Right.
Okay. Sir, please give your name, address, and your relationship to the applicant for the record.
Absolutely. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, fellow board members. My name is David Altman. I'm with the law office of Brown & Altman, LLP, 538 Broad Hollow Road, Suite 301, Melville, New York. I'm the attorney for the applicants here this evening. Just for the record, I did submit prior to appearing before the board this evening copies of the affidavit of mailing, affidavit of posting, along with the certified mailing receipts. In addition to which,
Have
with
that?
me, and they're in
Okay.
front of Mr. DeRubius. In addition, with me this evening is Chris Tartaglia from High Point Engineering. Chris is the project engineer. He's going to be providing some testimony, giving an overview of the proposed site plan. I've also submitted a copy of Chris's resume into the record. Chris has testified before this town on numerous occasions. As well, I have with me Matthew Seckler from Stonefield Engineering. Matthew is a traffic engineer. He's also testified before this town and numerous other municipalities here on the island as well. He will be offering some testimony in connection with traffic considerations as well as site safety, as duly noted by the planning department in its memo. And he has prepared a report in connection with that. I will note for the record that we do have a copy of the planning department memos, which I know were provided to the board in connection with the applications here tonight. I've had the opportunity to review the planning department memos as read into the record as well. I'll be offering some comment in my remarks with respect to that a little later on. That being said, I have some prepared comments. I'll just ask the board's indulgence for a few minutes so we can get through this as expeditiously as possible. The applicants here this evening are Haddington Company, LLC, who is the owner of Lot 4.2, which is petition number 2014-02. That is the former Checkers parcel, which is going to be raised. That structure is going to be coming down, hopefully in the next month or two. The other applicant here this evening is Sun Enterprises, LLC, the owner of Lot 24, which is the subject of petition 2014-03. That's the triangular piece shaded in green, which is now, it says subject site on it on the diagram in front of you. Lot 4.2 is approximately 1.6 acres in area, and as I mentioned, it's currently improved with the former Checkers fast food restaurant. That structure is going to be raised in preparation for the redevelopment of the overall project. Lot 24, a former recharge basin owned by the state of New York, is now owned by the applicant, obviously. It's approximately 0.6 acres in area, and I believe was acquired in a land swap from the previous owner a number of years ago. Property is located on the south side of New York State Route 347. It's approximately 1,180 feet southwest of Alexander Avenue. That's as to Lot 4.2. and approximately 910 feet southwest of Alexander Avenue as to Lot 24. Lot 4.2 is currently zoned WSI. The applicant is proposing a change to NB commensurate with the larger oblong parcel, which touches upon both 347 and Route 25, which was zoned NB during the 1994-95 zone change. Lot 24 is currently zone R21 residential. The applicant seeks a similar zone change to NB as to that parcel as well. Lot 4.2, as I mentioned, is approximately 69,800 square feet in area, and Lot 24 is approximately 26,220 square feet in area. The applicant proposes to redevelop, or develop, I should say, those two parcels in conjunction with the parcel to the east, which is Lot 5.1. That lot is approximately 116,700 square feet in area, was subject to a zone change application before the town board under petition number 94-3. Although not before this board this evening, and as a matter to be taken up with the town board in connection with the conditions were imposed as part of that zone change, I mention that lot because it is, of course, part of the overall project to develop these three parcels in harmony with the same development. Now, as I mentioned, there were certain conditions that were imposed as part of the 94-95 zone change approval as to 5.1. The applicant has submitted an application to the town to seek modification or removal of those conditions, and that matter needs to be scheduled and heard by the town board. We ask that this board be cognizant of that fact when taking into account the proposed development here this evening. The applicant seeks to develop these three parcels, as I said, in harmony with a single project, which consists of two proposed buildings, one approximately 30,500 square feet to be used for retail purposes commensurate with the NB zoning district. As noted on the easel next to me in the color site plan rendering prepared by the project engineers, if I might, Mr. Chairman.
Sure, go ahead.
30,500 square foot building runs parallel to Route 347. There's a second building which is proposed of approximately 3,100 square feet, which will be situated on the south side of Lot 5.1. Of course, not the subject of tonight's application. That building would front on Middle Country Road or Route 25.
Mr. Altman, just for sake of clarification for the public, if anybody's here, we have a different orientation between the map that's being shown there
Correct.
and the map that's there. The map actually of your site design, if it was to face north, should be 90 degrees.
Right, you want to turn it up on its side, that's what you're saying, right?
Yes. And that way,
So it matches that.
Prefer to do it that way?
Yeah, that way it matches, and everybody who's watching can see that what we're talking about here and where it is over there.
Sure.
thank you.
The combined size of the overall parcel is approximately 4.88 acres. Now, as noted by the Planning Department in connection with its memo, this area is obviously predominated by the Smith Haven Mall, which is one of the main commercial driving centers of the town, that and of course the Hapog Industrial Park as well as downtown Smithtown. That is located due east of the subject site, just east of Alexander Avenue. Applicant proposes to develop the subject site, as I mentioned, in connection with commercial uses similar to those proposed or similar to what exists today and in harmony with what exists within the Smith Haven Mall area. Now, in terms of the character of the area is generally speaking commercial in nature, with the exception of the north side of Route 347. The north side of Route 347, which, if I might just step across again
Sure,
to the
go
map.
ahead.
Take the mic if you're going to
Just
speak.
bring the microphone with you.
On the north side of Route 347, which in the area of the subject properties is a 6-lane highway, 3 lanes running easterly, 3 lanes westerly. And Mr. Seckler will address that in a little more detail when he provides his comments to you. Also median divided. To the north of that, north side, single-family residential dwellings, some vacant parcels, I believe zoned R10 and R21. There is a fairly heavy wooded buffer that runs along 347 between the dwellings and 347 itself. I'll step over to the zoning map depiction here. The parcel to the south, which is zoned WSI, is the Pep Boys parcel. The parcel to the east, which is lot 5.1, previously mentioned was rezoned NB. Then you have the New York State Department of Transportation, or DPW yard that is due east. Moving further east, again, you have mixed use along Alexander Avenue, some small commercial structures, a couple of dwellings, and then, of course, you finally have the Smith Haven Mall itself. The area itself being predominantly commercial. Now, just a couple of salient facts which I know the board would appreciate and I think would like to hear. Right now, in terms of tax ratables for the three parcels at issue, the Checkers parcel currently has an annual tax bill of slightly over $20,000, but the two vacant parcels right now have a combined tax rateable of approximately $4,500. It's anticipated that if this project is approved and built out, you're looking at least six figures in terms of tax ratables being generated by this particular project. I'll submit copies of the existing tax bills into the record just so you know what we're talking about.
You can hand it over to Alex.
In addition, there will be a number of construction jobs generated as a result of the proposed project, as well as many permanent jobs based upon the final end uses that go into this proposed project. I will state for the record right now, the applicants do not have any identified end user in mind. This is essentially a spec build based on the proposed plans that are before the board this evening. In addition to which, I know planning has indicated certain concern relative to traffic and traffic safety, but has also indicated, given the overall assemblage of the parcels and the fact that this is being developed as a uniform plan, that the feasibility of this project makes much more sense. And towards that end, we have sat down with planning and worked with them in terms of site design to address some of their safety concerns. So towards that end, at this point, I'm going to ask Chris Tartaglia to come up and give a little overview of the proposed site design itself. Chris?
Good evening. My name is Chris Tartaglia, principal owner of the firm High Point Engineering, 521 Conklin Street, Farmingdale, New York. I'm appearing on behalf of the applicant tonight. Mr. Altman has actually done a great job of describing a lot of the particulars on the project, but one item I want to focus on with specificity is some of the items mentioned in the planning memo, specifically with regard to the implementation of site design and ingress-egress design that would be in conformity with DOT standards and safe operating practices. Mr. Seckler will come up in a moment and describe in a little bit more detail, but what I'd like to do, referring to the exhibit to my left, is just point out a couple of the site features. Again, I think as Mr. Altman mentioned, we are proposing a 30,500 square foot retail building, which would be fronting Route 347, a smaller 3,100 square foot retail building fronting Middle Country Road. We are proposing parking that is in conformance with code. As currently drawn, the plan requires and provides a total of 336 parking stalls. However, as has been common practice within the town, because the parking requirements are a little bit conservative, is we're proposing to land bank a significant amount of those stalls. A total of about 40% of those stalls would be proposed to be land banked. Those of you not familiar with what land banking means, there is space created for those parking stalls. However, those parking stalls, instead of being asphalted and curbed, would actually be landscaped and green space. The applicant would, of course, agree to construct any number of those stalls should the parking demand exceed those stalls that are built. We are able to provide the stalls. We're just not building them, so we can provide a little bit more green space and a little bit more aesthetic opportunity for the site. Relative to ingress and egress, along Middle Country Road, there would be a dedicated right-hand in, right-hand out only access point. While we have filed an application with the DOT for preliminary review, we are relatively certain, given the developments up and down Middle Country Road, that this would be the limitation of access. One-way right turn in and a right turn out only. No left turns in, no left turns out. So we've designed the plan assuming that to be the case. Relative to Route 347, we plan to reuse the existing ingress-egress driveway, which currently services the now defunct Checkers restaurant property. That one also, obviously, is right in, right out, because 347 is divided by a median and only allows access to eastbound traffic along this part of the roadway. We would also seek to add one additional curb cut on the far northeast end of the property, also right turn in, right turn out only. Given the length of frontage along 347, those curb cuts would be separated as far apart as possible. We have substantial experience with design of sites of this nature and understand that these are the things that DOT would look for in terms of total traffic access and safety. As was brought up by planning in their memo, there is a discussion for a desire for deceleration lanes into and out of the site, for an acceleration lane out of the site. It is noted that the existing curb cut that I mentioned previously on 347 already has those lanes in place, and we would certainly propose to have similar features located at the other 347 driveway. With regard to Middle Country Road, it remains to be seen if DOT would mandate acceleration and deceleration lanes. It is noted that the driveway immediately to our west, which is the Pep Boys driveway, is indeed signed for right in, right out only. And I can let Mr. Seckler again speak to this, but we haven't noted any concerns or any need at this point for acceleration and deceleration lanes along that roadway. With regard to internal site design, I mentioned the parking. Each building will have a dedicated loading and trash receptacles, which are out of the main view of passersby and occupants of the center. Also, at the suggestion of planning, we have created an area to the east side of the larger building along 347, which can accommodate a drive-up window should any of the tenants that may want to avail themselves of this property look for some kind of a drive-up. It's noted for the record, there are no tenants of record, there's no interest at this point in terms of potential tenants, but we thought that was an excellent idea from planning to at least be able to design the site now to accommodate such an appurtenance. Really, that's the sum and substance of my discussion. I'm certainly here to answer any questions, but at this point, I think we'd like to bring Matt Seckler up from Stonefield Engineering to provide some commentary on his traffic investigation.
Okay. Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman and members of the board. My name is Matt Seckler. That's S-E-C-K-L-E-R. I'm a senior project manager at Stonefield Engineering and Design. Our address is 521 Conklin Street in Farmingdale. We are the traffic engineers of record for this project, and we have just, things being passed around, we've prepared a traffic impact study for the proposed retail development. It's last revised June 5th, 2014. I think it's working its way around the table there. I'm going to pull up the exhibit of the existing aerial photograph. I'll use that one. Perfect. As traffic engineers, when we look at and try to evaluate the safe access of any site, we carefully want to study how the existing traffic in the area functions. The property outlined in blue in this exhibit, as you can see, is located between the intersection of Route 25 and 347 and the Route 25 and Alexander Avenue intersections. Middle Country Road, which is Route 25, is a New York State DOT roadway, has a 40 mile per hour speed limit, generally 2 through lanes in each direction to the east of the site with turn lanes at major intersections. As you get west of the site, it does become 1 lane in each direction. You have Neconsett Highway is the northeast-southwest directional roadway. It's also a DOT roadway. It has a speed limit of 55 miles an hour. Both these roadways are principal arterial roadways, meaning these are major commuter and retail corridors through the area. On any given day, Route 25 carries about 27,000 vehicles per day. Route 347 carries around 51,000 vehicles per day. So these are very important roadways to the community. We analyzed and performed traffic turning movement counts at the 347 Route 25 intersection and Route 25 and Alexander Avenue intersections in November 13th, 2014, which was a Thursday, and November 9th, 2014, which was a Saturday. Obviously, being right near the Smith Haven Mall, a Saturday traffic count is appropriate due to the large amount of retail located proximate to the site. As part of our study counts, we performed our counts from 7 to 9 in the morning, 4 to 7 in the evening on the weekdays, and 11 to 2 on Saturday. We determined the peak hours of the roadways, and just to give you another example of what the volumes are on these roadways, this intersection during peak hours pumps through about 4,000 vehicles per hour. To determine the level of service and delay that exists today on these roadways, we use industry standard highway capacity software to analyze the overall intersections. These intersections have very long cycles as determined by the New York State DOT. A long cycle means that if you get there when it's red, it may take a long time for your approach to turn green. What this does is it accomplishes a large amount of throughput on both roadways so that if you hit the lights correctly, you don't hit red at every single intersection along 25 when you're traveling east-west, and similarly along 347. So in order to accomplish that, they have a very long cycle length, and this is done by New York State DOT. To determine the number of trips this proposed site would generate, we use the Institute of Transportation Engineers Trip Generation Manual, which is the standard for the industry. This site, having retail components, is considered a shopping center by the Institute of Transportation Engineers. There are over 100 studies during the morning, PM, and Saturday time periods from sites similar to this where traffic engineers have counted individually the number of cars that enter and exit a site. Using these trip generation rates, we were able to determine the projected number of trips this site would generate. In addition, obviously in shopping centers, you see a large amount of traffic that is just passing by the site on their everyday going to work, or maybe someone who currently goes to the Smith Haven Mall for, to go to one of the restaurants or shops may end up using one of these retail uses. That's known as a pass-by trip. In other words, they're not going out of their way just to specifically use this site. In the Institute of Transportation Engineers recognizes that 53% of all users of this site in the PM are cars that are already on the roadway today, and 38% on Saturday are already on the roadway today. So this is an integrated use. It fits in with the general volumes on the roadway. Just to give you a brief analysis of the number of trips this site would generate, in the morning, a site of this size would be expected to generate 32 trips. A trip is obviously a car coming in and a car coming out, so approximately 15 to 16 cars in the morning. In the evening, you're looking at about 125 trips. Again, that's about 60 cars coming in and out, over half of which are cars that would already be driving by on their normal commuter rush hour. And on Saturday, 162 cars, which would be about 162 trips, which would be about 80 cars over the entire hour. Just for comparison purposes, the existing Checkers that's located in the purple triangle there, a drive-through fast food restaurant generates 71 trips during the PM rush hour. So even though we're developing this entire site now, we are only adding about 27 cars in addition to what a normal fast food drive-through would create, and we're able to develop the entire site. Similarly, on the Saturday, you'd be increasing the trips from what currently would be projected to be generated out of a fast food restaurant by only 20 cars over an entire hour. So we found a use that actually is less intense per square foot than one of the existing uses that exist on the site. Obviously, the Checkers being vacant, when we performed our traffic counts, there were no cars going in and out, and our analysis includes no credit for that Checkers being on that site. Overall, the proposed development is expected to generate less than 1.5% more vehicles on the roadway than what exists today. This is because it has a high number of pass-by trips and because the volumes on this roadway are already are already significant, and what we're adding is such a minor piece to that. I do want to talk briefly about the parking and the access points. The parking, as Chris mentioned, is we do comply, having 336 parking spots on site. That includes land bank parking spaces. Your ordinance is 1 stall for every 100 square feet. Typically, the Institute of Transportation Engineers during peak time sees about 4 to 5 vehicles per 1,000 square feet. So approximately half of what is required as part of your ordinance. What we provide on site is 195 parking spaces, which is actually in excess of what the Institute of Transportation Engineers would expect the overall demand, the peak demand to be on this site. The site has, as Chris mentioned, 3 driveways dedicated purely to the site, the 1 right-in, right-out driveway on Middle Country Road, and 2 right-in, right-out driveways on Route 347. Additionally, there'll be cross-access provided through the Pep Boys lot, as exists today. When you're going through the Checkers lot, you can pass through the Pep Boys lot. All driveways, as was mentioned, will be right-in, right-out. It has been found through studies that over 70% of all accidents at driveways occur due to left-turning vehicles. Obviously, we've been able to eliminate that, and by having just right-in, right-out driveways, we believe that the access points that we provided are safe. In addition, as Chris mentioned, Route 347, the Checkers driveway does have an accel-decel lane that exists today that'll be provided. The northernmost driveway on Route 347 has a shoulder that's provided. That is typical for Route 347. Most of the commercial properties along Route 347 have either access through shoulders or access through accel and decel lanes. On Route 25, Middle Country Road, we have a driveway that's similar to the driveway of the Pep Boys, where it's a right-in, right-out driveway. If you go up and down Middle Country Road to the east, you'll notice that every commercial property along that roadway enters into a rightmost lane. Vehicles who travel along Middle Country Road understand that the rightmost lane is typically used to service the commercial properties. This is found in the restaurant across the street. You go closer to the east, you'll find other shopping centers where you just have a access point on the rightmost lane. Again, this meets driver expectation. However, we have submitted these plans to the New York State DOT, and we will await their review in terms of judging how our access points are located. Our access points are located as far from the intersection as possible on Middle Country Road, and with providing sufficient distance between the driveways along Route 347. We reviewed the sight lines that are at all these driveways. All these driveways do provide enough sight distance so that if you're at the stop sign waiting to turn, you could easily look back and have a clearer line of sight for the vehicles approaching. Having nearby intersections, you have a signalized intersection at 347-25, one at 25 in Alexander. What it allows for you to do is allows for gaps in traffic to be created, so when the light is red on Middle Country Road here at Alexander, it allows for vehicles that will be exiting our site to have gaps in traffic and make a right turn. Similarly, if on Route 347, when this signal turns red in the Route 347 direction, it'll provide sufficient gaps upstream of that for vehicles to turn right onto Route 347. Overall, the development from a access management point of view and from a trip generation point of view does not create a significant impact on the roadway network. The driveways have been designed to accomplish safe and efficient movement on and off the site. And I'm certainly here for any questions that the board has.
Okay, I have a couple of things that came
Sure.
to mind, and then I'm going to see if any of my colleagues have any questions. But the first thing is, you gave us some projections as to how much more traffic that this project will develop or will generate.
Yes.
Wouldn't you agree with me that how much more traffic is generated by this project is going to be in large part determined by what goes into these buildings? And that if you have very successful businesses going in there and they end up being very successful, it's going to generate a lot more traffic than if the businesses aren't successful. Do you agree with that?
Well, I will say that the Institute of Transportation Engineers, which gives us the formulas to calculate this, is based on over 100 sites throughout the United States. Obviously, some of those sites may have very, very popular stores, and some of those sites may have some underperforming stores. Overall, by taking a sample as large as 100 or 200 different sites, you're able to eliminate the noise of some of the, let's say, least successful and most successful stores, and provide what is an average, which is, in this case, what you could expect when you're just filling a site plan where you're just calling it a retail development. So we believe that this is consistent with what is here.
So your projections are based upon averages of 100 other sites, not this particular site?
Correct. What the Institute of Transportation Engineers Trip Generation Manual provides, which is the definitive source. New York State DOT uses it. The county agencies use it. This is the source and the handbook that's used to perform this type of exercise.
I understand it's a guideline that you use, and it's probably accepted as some type of a guideline in the industry. But what I'm asking you is, as to this particular site, the amount of traffic that's going to be generated by this site would be largely, in part, determined by what goes into those buildings and how successful they are.
Well, again, the sample of shopping centers that's prepared, the Institute of Transportation Engineers.
I don't know. I know about the samples. I want to know about. I'm saying about these buildings here.
Right.
And do you agree with that? I mean, as far as these buildings, I'm not talking about the samples. What these buildings are going to generate would be determined in part, at least, by what goes in there eventually and how successful it is.
Well, I will tell you the same formulas would have been used to generate the traffic for the Smith Haven Mall
Mr.
and the
Chairman,
other retail developments.
Mr. Chairman, I think I understand. What the chairman is asking for is what is the range or distribution? In other words, what's the worst that could happen?
Right.
In other words, we read the ITE manual too. It's a statistical average, but it has a worst case and a best case, or if you want to call it that, or a high or a low. And I think what the chairman is asking is basically, if we're looking at the worst case scenario here, what do you project to be the worst case scenario?
Right. And I will say that the numbers that we use is considered the peak hour. So this would be overall of the sample, what they would expect the peak hour to perform at. Obviously, there are hours that'll be below that and above
Okay, well,
that.
let me give you statistically.
Right.
When we look at the parking figures, which you say that our parking figures are high, when we look at the ITE standards, our parking figures are based upon, I think it's like the 80th or 85th percentile,
Correct.
something like that, which means that 15% of the sites or thereabouts have worse parking configurations. But the ITE says if you could reach that level of 80, that applies to most sites.
Correct.
And I don't know what the figures are for distribution of stores, but I think what the chairman is trying to ask is, based upon your assessment and not the average, will the numbers double or will they triple based upon the statistical range that's shown in the ITE manual? They show you the distribution of the traffic. So what's the upper level, I think, is what he's looking at.
I will say it won't double, and I just want to explain one more time what that sample that IT has is, just because a shopping center in IT is defined as it can be a contiguous group of stores, but it could also be a contiguous group of stores with out-parcel properties. It includes shopping centers that have movie theaters, includes shopping centers that have restaurants, and some other uses that may generate more traffic than what could possibly be contemplated on a site this size. So the sample has locations that are going to generate more trips than what's even possible at this site. So while we use the average peak, which again would be, I guess, the 50 percentile peak, it does include certain types of shopping centers with uses that are more intense than anything that could be provided here.
All right. Now, if any of you also wish to jump in on any of these questions, if you feel that you would be better suited to give us an answer, please feel free. Do you have any idea as to how many tenants you're going to put in the large building? I think you said it's 31,000 square feet. Do you have a range of how many tenants you'd be looking to put in there?
Candidly, at the moment, no. In discussions with the property owner, they're looking to actually minimize the number of tenants, 2 to 3 at most.
Okay.
Well, then let's take that then. What could possibly go into that size of a building? 2 to 3 tenants, let's say, in this proposed zoning category. Maybe it's better for you, I don't know. But give us an idea. This is all abstract. We have no idea what you're looking to do here, really.
Well, I think you have to take a look at what's permitted in the NB zoning district.
Give us an example.
And that's what we would be proposing to do. So, do you want me to pull pull out the table of uses, I'll go through the table of
No,
uses.
no, I just want to try to understand what's going to possibly go in here.
So you
Well,
have no idea at all, zero, as to what potentially you would like to put there, or what could go there? You have no contact from anybody, no potential tenants that you've spoken to, nothing. Is that correct?
At the moment, that's my understanding, that there's no dialogue with any tenant right now or an end user.
Mr.
Is there
Chair,
anybody, is
It's
there
a spec
anybody
build.
is there anybody besides you that would have a different understanding, that they may have?
I have a representative from the owner here. If you'd like
Okay.
to ask him that question, I'm happy to have him come up. Mike?
Mr. Chairman, I could give the board a couple of figures relevant to this, because we are looking at this particular site, and one of the uses, this has to do with the drive-in window, and we would anticipate that one of the tenants might be a bank or fast food. And if it's a bank, you're looking at an occupancy, a typical bank of about 5,000 or 6,000 square feet. What also may be on this particular site is a what we call a high-volume restaurant, and these are like Applebee's or Fridays or whatever. And in general, they go, depending upon what size, anywhere from 15,000 square feet to 20,000 square feet. So if the applicant is looking at, let's say, 3 tenants on the site, a probable use might be a bank with a high-volume restaurant and then some other retail use in between it. That's how I would judge this. When the applicant was approaching us, we anticipated, which they mentioned, that because most of the shopping centers this size are putting in drive-in windows for whatever their users are.
Yeah, I understand what the potential of it. I'd like to know whether they have any idea as to what they would like to possibly put there, or they have any potential tenants that they've already spoken to.
Okay, hi.
Name, just your name and your representative.
Sure, my name is Michael Morrissey, Morrissey. My address is 220 Westbury Avenue, Carl Place, New York. I'm a family member of the owners,
Okay.
which are a group of brothers and sisters. And at this time, we don't have any potential tenants. We have maybe 1 or 2 people that had been looking at it. But due to the length of the process, we feel that it's not even worth entertaining things at this time. But like Mr. DeRubia said, I mean, one of the potential on the eastern end would be a bank with a drive-through. That was a good idea with the drive-through. The western side, a retail store, a larger retail store. We don't know what, but I'm thinking something like a Staples or a drugstore or something like that, and then something in the middle.
Oh, well, now the larger building is proposed to be 31,000 square feet?
Right, I'm talking about that building
I
in
understand,
general,
and the
yes.
smaller building, 3,800 square feet? 3,100? Is there anything contemplated with that building?
No.
Nothing at all?
Nothing.
Okay, that's the first question. The second question is, it's my understanding, and I might be off on this, but that the state DOT is going to rework 347 all the way out to Port Jeff eventually. And they're not there yet. I think they're still up to Hop Hog. But have any of you been in touch with the state as to how that might affect your property or your project if, in fact, that goes through that area?
Yes, you are correct that Route 347, the whole corridor, I think, we're right down at 111 right now, and it's working its way east. We have seen concept plans. The concept plan for this location, our site is not impacted in any way. Our driveways are not in any locations that would not be permitted in the future. I know the last time I saw it had a date of 2021, 2022, and I think that date keeps getting pushed.
It's not coming tomorrow, but
yeah, I know it keeps getting pushed.
They're going to get there eventually.
Yeah, but I have looked at the concept plans that are available on the DOT website and have, looking at that and looking at our driveways, I do not see any impact to our site.
All right, now I have one other question, and actually you might be the best one to answer this one. Do you see any possibility that the area behind the larger building that runs from Middle Country up to 347 might be used as a cut-through to go from Middle Country to 347? And if that is the case, do you have any plans to perhaps discourage that? Because I could see that traffic light backs up, people are going to be making a right and going right down that driveway area to cut the corner and come back out onto 347.
There's got to be traffic flow restriction between the buildings.
Well, we want some traffic flow because we don't want vehicles that are using, let's say, both uses to have to go back out on the highway and circle around. To answer your question in terms of cut-through, Chairman, there are other cut-through routes that make that same movement. Vehicles could take Alexander between the two. Right now, you have actually the drive-through from the driveway on Pep Boys connects through to the Checkers driveway. So that also exists today where vehicles could be making those same movements. And just to give you an example of the number of cars that are making this right turn, in the morning peak hour, 16 vehicles make this right turn, 8 in the PM and 39 during the Saturday peak hour. So it's not a very high movement, this right turn, because it could be accomplished at a number of other intersections, both through the streets and, like I said, we didn't notice when we did our traffic counts a significant, if any, vehicles traveling through the existing cut-through that exists today.
Well, do you think that by setting it up that way, you're opening up to potential hazard of cars cutting through there? I understand that there are other roads there that people could use, but the way that you have it, people could use yours.
Yeah,
And do you contemplate, or do you have any plans in place to try to discourage that, or you don't care about that?
No, I don't see it being a high-demand movement, so I don't anticipate that occurring. Obviously, as this project moves forward, maybe no through traffic of a sign of that sort can be utilized. I just know from being out here, this movement is not a high-demand movement. It's not even part of the signal, this right turn, so it's a yield movement. It's fairly easy to do. I would say that traveling along these roadways might be faster than driving through a parking lot where you have vehicles backing up and maybe a drive-through, some congestion of that nature on site. It will probably be much easier for vehicles to use the proper roadway as opposed to driving through a driveway and an internal site.
Does your current plan have any plans to encompass any speed bumps in there, or that's not contemplated at this point?
It's not contemplated at this point.
Okay.
I
Anybody
have-
else
I
on the
have-
board
I have-
wish, before we open it up to the public?
I have a couple of questions.
Go
Some
ahead.
of my questions have already been answered. If my math is correct, you've got close to 5 acres, 4.8 give or take acres. It's irregularly shaped. I'm wondering with these two buildings, especially one small one on Middle Country, the larger one there, is there any unutilized building potential so that if this site proves successful, you may be coming back to us to expand the site?
I'll take that one again, the site engineer. Right now, we make parking, as previously testified. We are right on our parking count for the building envelopes that are provided.
That's
So,
the 336?
correct.
Okay.
So if we were to provide more building space, we would take away parking stalls, we would need a parking variance, and hence throw us into a zoning board of appeals application. It would be really up to them to decide whether or not we are overtaxing the parking. But right now, there is no plan to develop beyond what's shown on the plan.
Okay, now the reference was made to a change in real estate taxes, which is certainly always exciting for us, but you said from 25,000, give or take dollars now for the 3 lots, to 6 figures. Is 6 figures that you're looking at 101,000? Is it 201,000? Is it 301,000?
I do not have a proposed assessment, and I couldn't do that right now, but I would, and I'd be venturing to guess, but you're probably talking at least a couple $100,000.
Couple $100,000.
Yeah, but you said 6 figures. I think he's correct. 6 figures could be 100,000, or it could be 999,000. It's a big range.
Wouldn't the more be better?
Yeah, but do you have any idea what you propose, what you think it could be? Other than a range of 800,000.
I'm saying based on my experience on other projects of similar nature, to at least $250,000, somewhere in that area.
That's fair enough.
Good. And they're actually going to pave, you're actually going to pave 195 spaces and land bank the balance? Is that what you were saying?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, that covers my questions for now. Thank you.
Anybody else on the board have any questions? No? Okay. Is it,
I'm
anything
sorry,
else
just
you wanna-
one more thing that I
Sure.
missed. I apologize. The site as designed is variance-free. There are no bulk variances required. We find that that's important, obviously, because we're proposing a new development, so there's no variances proposed whatsoever. We meet all requirements.
Okay.
Actually, I have one further question. Since you're planning retail, the town would share in the benefit of the sales tax. Do you have any projections as to the amount of sales tax revenue we might realize separate and apart from real estate tax revenue?
Be determined by what goes there?
I would like to say I did, but given the fact there's no identified end user at the moment, no, I can't give you that number.
Okay.
Okay. Just by show of hands, please, is there anybody in the audience who wishes to be heard on this matter? Anybody? Oh, wait, just wait. Anybody who wishes to be heard on this matter, you're going to have to come up to the microphone and give your name and address, and then you can ask a question, you can make a comment. If you have a question, hopefully either one of us or one of the gentlemen will be able to answer it for you. So, sir, you're first.
Yep, my name is George Filippo. I'm a resident on 50 Acre Road South. And I just had a question. There's a Checkers occupying that space right now. Is that correct? A defunct Checkers? What's the proposal to put in its place there?
I think you can ask the gentleman. I think what they're going to do, sir, I think what they're going to do is they want to put a 31,000 square foot building on that Checkers parcel and the other parcels that are adjacent to it.
Okay, so it's not the same
So they're
type.
going to knock that. I think they mentioned the Checkers building. They're going to knock it down. And if you see the gold building, the gold in there, that's what they're going to, what they want to put there.
Okay. I have a suggestion. Why don't we move these 4-story rentals that we're thinking of building in Smithtown and put them in that space?
Is there anybody else in the audience who wishes to be heard on this matter? Please come up, sir. Name and address.
Hi, my name is Joseph Natoli. I live in St. James, 16 Shetland Lane, St. James, New York. 16 Shetland Lane. Okay. Besides, why do we need to develop this property? I understand the need for maybe more tax revenue. Why do we want to add more congestion to this overtaxed highway, which I travel every day, which I have to make an appointment to get on 25A or Wisconsin Highway? Why do we have to increase traffic? Why do we need more stores there? There's enough stores there. Some stores are vacant. Do we need another Walgreens? Do we need another dry cleaners? Do we need another pizza joint? Do we need another McDonald's or a bank? How many banks are there around here? There's loads of banks. Look what happened to Checkers. Good God. What about that restaurant up a little further up that there was an Italian restaurant, now it's Nissan? How many times did that go out? Do we need more stuff here? Are we going to look like Queens? Is that what we want to do? I don't want it to have that. Why don't we run the number 7 subway line out here while we're at it?
Anybody else in the audience wish to be heard on this matter? Okay, I think what the situation is right now, this applicant is seeking to change the zoning on 2 of the 3 pieces of property that are involved in this project. The third piece of property was already the subject of a zone change, but there are conditions on that third piece of property that they have to go to the town board to ask the town board to relieve them or change those conditions. So I don't think we're going to do anything on the 2 pieces of property that are before us that they're seeking to have us recommend a change of zoning on until the town board does its business concerning the proposed changes in the conditions on the third lot. So I think what's going to happen here is this is going to be adjourned pending action by the town board on the third lot. You're recommending that? I think that's the only way we could really go.
That, and we're also recommending an on-site inspection by the board.
Right, so we'll have time to go out there, certainly.
Yes.
Okay, anybody want to make a motion then?
In the matter of the zone change petition 2014-02 and 2014-03, I move that we adjourn for an on-site inspection and also additionally to have this, an answer from the town board.
On the third piece of property, on the
third
relief
piece of
from the
property.
conditions. Okay. We have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? All right, the matter is adjourned, pending on-site inspection by the board and pending action by the town board regarding the application for the relief of the conditions set on the third piece of property, the one that's not before us tonight. Thank you. Guess now we have what everybody's here for. Thank you. Have a good night.
Good night.
Just,
Mr. Chairman, the next item on the agenda under Part 3, Item 16. This is a zone change petition number 2014-04 for home properties. I'm going to begin on page 2 of your memo under Item 6, where it begins planning considerations. The applicant is requesting a change of zone from R10, residential, single-family, 10,000 square foot minimum lot size, and LI, light industrial, to RMGA in order to develop the site for a 260-unit garden apartment complex. This is a request to amend the comprehensive plan. At the inception of zoning in 1932, the subject site was zoned for business use along Middle Country Road, New York State Route 25, with the remainder of the site a mix of residential districts to the north of Route 25. By 1949, most of the residentially zoned area north of Route 25 in the subject site was rezoned for light industrial use. However, the area of the subject parcel on both sides of Marchant Drive remained zoned for residential use. By 1955, the other business zone parcels along this section of Route 25 had been rezoned to light industrial use. The zoning of the subject parcel has not changed since 1955, and the subject site remains a mix of primarily light industrial zoning with a residentially zoned area on both sides of Marchant Drive. The current zoning and uses adjacent to the site reflect the mix of light industry, LI, wholesale service industry, WSI, and residential uses that have existed in this area since the late 1940s. The LI part of the subject parcel is occupied by a concrete products manufacturing plant, Smithtown Concrete. Some of the residentially zoned parts of the subject site are also part of the concrete plant site, while the remainder of the residential properties are vacant wooden land. To the north of the subject site is an area zone LI, which is occupied by the town's Montclair Avenue yard, a former landfill from the 1950s. Also to the north of the site, adjacent to the yard, is an area zoned R10 developed with single-family homes built in the late 1980s. To the south of the site, across Middle Country Road, New York State, Route 25, is a mix of WSI and LI zoning. The area zoned WSI is occupied by a motor vehicle showroom, Smithtown Ford, and the LI zoned area is occupied by several municipal buildings, including the town's animal shelter, the Eugene Cantanaro Senior Citizen Center, and a fire training facility. To the east of the site, across Montclair Avenue, is a mix of WSI and LI zones, which are occupied by a motor vehicle showroom on Middle Country Road, Competition Subaru of Smithtown, as well as a concrete products manufacturing plant on Montclair Avenue, Nicola Ready Mix. To the west is a mix of WSI zoning along Middle Country Road and R10 zoning north of Middle Country Road. The WSI portion is occupied by a vacant structure and an auto repair garage, Advanced Transmissions. The residential areas to the west are occupied by single-family homes fronting on 50 Acre Road South, some of which date from the 1940s. Situated on Route 25 in an area that permits a mix of commercial industrial uses, the subject site has been the location of a concrete plant and related sales use for decades. Indeed, the site is perhaps the inverse of a landmark for people traveling on Middle Country Road, as its structures and material storage cannot be missed from the roadway but are not an attractive site. With a concrete plant going out of business, this will become one of the largest sites in town under single ownership that can be available for redevelopment. This presents an unusual opportunity, one the town should approach with care and deliberation, to consider what land uses are lacking in the town and what possibilities may be presented by a brownfield of this size on a major roadway. In a supplemental study for the comprehensive plan update, the town examined the entire New York State Route 25 corridor and made recommendations for possible rezoning and redevelopment of many sections of the corridor. The corridor has an excess of WSI and LI zoning, and also has a number of properties that will be hard to develop unless the zoning is changed to allow uses that are now underrepresented within the town. The proposed apartment complex development is keeping with the recommendations of that supplemental study. It is unlikely that a new light industrial user would be motivated to locate here, as the site does not provide the type of support services, concentration of similar businesses, and infrastructure needed by modern light industrial businesses, for example, high-tech companies, warehouses, and back-office operations. Nearby residential neighborhoods, automobile dealerships, and service businesses would all benefit from a clean operation developed in a well-planned single-user site. The tax base will benefit from a developed site with a fair and accurate property tax assessment. It is likely that these objectives can be achieved best by changing the zoning on the property to permit uses the town needs that in themselves are best suited for large sites. This petition is proposing that type of viable use for the property, a garden apartment complex that will benefit the town in various ways. There are several factors to consider about the development proposed in this petition. While central business districts are ideal for apartments, given the scarcity of available location within the town's business district, this site, located east of the downtown area and along a major corridor, is easily accessible by car or bus and is close, though not walking distance, to the railroad stations at Smithtown and St. James. By constructing 3 to 4 story buildings, the site can be developed with large buffers and open space forming a green belt, presenting an attractive location to replace the current eyesore. Garden apartments will generate additional traffic on this busy major roadway, while full development of the site under the existing LI zoning would actually generate more traffic. Given the size of the property, the existing use, and the proposed use, it is likely that the proposal will receive a positive declaration under the State Environmental Quality Review Act process. This means that an environmental impact statement would be prepared, a process that can take more than a year. The EIS looks at all the factors that may have an impact on the surrounding community and the potential users of the site, including those such as impacts on natural resources, such as water use, waste, water disposal, social and cultural resources, such as schools, libraries, community institutions, and economic health of the town, such as tax implications for different scenarios, potential job creation, effects on local realtors. These are just a few of the possible project results that an EIS would examine. The EIS process would also analyze alternatives, including the do-nothing alternative. Examining the potential impacts is a major part of the process of considering the trade-offs that could be necessary to accommodate the proposal and how such compromises could be managed. With the assumption that an EIS will be done for the property and the findings and conditions of that review will direct many aspects of any development of the site, it is still useful at this early point to look at how the site design can affect the site and the adjacent neighbors. The density proposed by the petitioner is less than the 17.4 units per acre allowed by the ordinance. An earlier use of portions of the site was a landfill, making those areas difficult to develop for housing. Taken together, these factors can contribute to a good site design, encouraging creation of a green belt around 3/4 of the site and other open spaces within the site. If there is a mix of 3- and 4-story buildings clustered towards the south portion of the site, nearer to New York State Route 25 than to the residences to the north and west, with all buildings at least 200 feet from residential property lines, the design can minimize the impact on existing adjacent residences and preserve, and preserve or create green open space. Parking garages can be permitted, reducing the area of pavement and allowing for more green open space on the site. As noted previously, one issue that will be of concern is the possibility of increased traffic and congestion. It is likely there will be some increase in traffic from the proposed development, especially as the site is underutilized. If the site were fully utilized under its current zoning, traffic generations would be higher. However, there are 2 factors that may mitigate traffic conflicts. First, the main access point to the site already has an existing traffic signal. This will be helpful in managing traffic circulation along New York State Route 25 at that access point, and will also avoid the disruption that can occur because of construction of an altogether new signal. Second, there is more than enough room on the site to require a main entrance design with adequate queuing space, that is, a long enough neck to get cars off the roadway quickly, that will decrease potential for congestion at the entrance. And contrasted with the effects of full development under the current LI zoning, the proposal would generate a lower volume of traffic overall, would likely reduce the negative impacts of rush hour type congestion, and would decrease the potential for local truck traffic. Additionally, it should be noted that the complex on Terry Road, south of New York State Route 25, known originally as the Galleria, which had almost 600 housing units in a mix of single-family, townhouse, and apartment units, is more than twice the size of the current proposal, has not caused any significant impacts on the traffic on Terry Road or New York State Route 347. As acknowledged in many studies of the economic health of our region, multifamily housing is one of the major deficiencies on Long Island for young families or for seniors. The town has begun to turn this around, with approximately 60% of the housing built in the last 2 decades being multifamily housing. However, the number and type and affordability of units has not been adequate to satisfy the need. Young people, single or married, are taking their education, earnings, power, and energies out of the town because they cannot find housing they can afford. Seniors must leave the communities they have been a part of for much of their lives because they cannot find suitable, smaller housing units. Businesses are sometimes reluctant to relocate or start up here because of their employees are not able to find good places to live within their means. The Planning Board will want to consider all the possible impacts, negative and positive, of this proposal before making any recommendation to the Town Board. The environmental review process will provide much of the necessary information for that consideration. Therefore, the Planning Department recommends that the Planning Board ask the Town Board to make a secret determination as soon as possible, and that the Planning Board postpone further review of this petition until completion of the environmental review. The Suffolk County Planning Commission has not yet commented on this petition.
Anybody present on behalf of the applicant?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Vincent Tremarco. I represent the applicant. Steve Cataldo is handing up the affidavit of posting and mailing along with a brochure we put together about home properties. I'd like to indicate that that same brochure is in the back of the room on the, I guess it's the food service bar there, if any of the people in the audience would like a copy. I also...
They're getting copies of this for themselves.
Can you give them a second to get the maps? And also, too, the same comment I had for the previous applicant, your map is in the wrong direction relevant to what the map is. If you could turn it so that it...
Steve?
The bottom, that's correct. Thank you.
What?
Okay. I continue, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
I think, go forward while he's handing those out.
With me also tonight is Steve Cataldo, you all know as a local architect in town. Kevin Walsh from VHB, along with traffic engineer Patrick Lenahan. I'd just like to make a few points before I introduce Don Haig, Senior Vice President of Home Properties. Home Properties is a rather large organization which is not only a developer of properties, but Home Properties maintains those properties and is in the business of renting apartment units. It doesn't build apartments and sell those buildings to other operators. Every unit that is built on Long Island and in the rest of the Middle States are and is operated and taken care of by Home Properties. They are not in the business of building and leaving. So whatever they do, they have to answer for their actions, and I'll just wait until... So whatever Home Properties does, they, now and in the future, have to answer for their operations. We would like to model our units and in the sense of the operation as was done by Avalon, which the planning department mentioned in their review and recommendation to this board. With respect to taxes that would be generated, we have checked this out and have estimated at least $1 million a year would be generated in real property taxes. Also, the project would take about 2 years in the construction phase. Home Properties hires local contractors, a general contractor, and that general contractor generally hires people, subs that also are local. They don't come in with some building manager from out of state and bring in out of state people. They keep everything local, and there's a good reason for that. Local contractors have to answer not only to Home Properties, but also to the town, because they hope to continue, usually, to work in the town. The other thing that was mentioned by the planning department, there's a lot of things mentioned which make a lot of sense. There really is no need for any more LI uses where this property is located. It just doesn't work in that area. We can see that the factory type use or manufacturing use without outside storage is something that would never work in that area. Given the fact that the concrete block company was there for probably 60 to 80 years, they couldn't do that today in the town of Smithtown in that location, because the zoning there is light industrial, doesn't permit outside storage. Everything would have to be done indoors. And I know that the audience and the surrounding homeowners are very concerned about this project. And we are very concerned about the project and how we develop the project. As I say, we're going to be in there for the long haul, and that's not to build and to run. So what we do is we would like to give the audience here and the board a little bit of background about Home Properties and what they are and how they operate. And I'd like to call Don Haig. He's the Senior Vice President of Home Properties, will be in charge of this project. So I would ask him to come up and say a few words.
Good evening, Chairman of the Board and members of the Planning Board. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about the proposal. Home Properties is a publicly traded real estate multifamily oriented, or solely multifamily, real estate investment trust. We're traded on the New York Stock Exchange, have been since 1994, and we're headquartered in Rochester, New York. We own over 41,000 apartments, primarily from the Washington, D.C. metro area up to Boston, with a few apartments in Fort Lauderdale and some in Chicago. But mostly our concentration is between the Washington, D.C. metro and Boston. Almost all of our units are in suburban type of locations, and they tend to be oriented towards garden apartment communities. As you can see in the handout, there's a list of the properties we own in Long Island. We own 14 communities on Long Island. All of them have come to us through acquisitions from the then owners. This is almost 3,600 apartments. It's about 9% of our portfolio. We started buying here in 1997. As Vince commented, we're long-term owners. The idea is we acquire a property, or in this case, hope to develop a property, and then we continue to improve it. We manage it. I think we manage as well as anybody that's in the business. And we hold it for the long term. The idea is to generate income that pays dividends to the shareholders. So we need to own. We can't churn. We can't sell. One of the points to make about our plans for this community is it's primarily, we expect to have primarily 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms, maybe a few 3 bedrooms, but not the emphasis. It goes very much to the report that the planning department made in terms of the way we size up the market. A great need for the sort of the housing that the young person just got out of college, gets their first job or maybe their second job, before they've decided on where they want to own a house or decided or saved up the money for a down payment. But the other part of this is as the baby boom generation ages, which include me, people don't want to be burdened with a house. People have other lifestyle concerns, and so the idea of a high-quality rental community becomes very appealing. We want to offer to our residents a full range of amenities, as you can see from the plan. So it would include a clubhouse, a fitness center, a swimming pool, things like this, consistent with a Class A suburban garden apartment community. So that is our expectation, and we appreciate the comments made by the planning department with respect to this application, and obviously are prepared to answer any questions as they may arise. Thank you.
I think what we'll do is we'll hold all the questions until all the presentation is done, and then we'll ask them all at one time.
Next, I would like to call Patrick Lenahan. He is our traffic expert. He's testified before this board on a number of occasions. He will give you a brief overview of the traffic situation vis-a-vis the way this property is going to be laid out.
Mr. Tremarco, when you say brief, do you mean more or less than 5 minutes? I'm not trying to hold you back. I'm just...
Less than 5 minutes.
Less than 5 minutes, okay,
Yep.
because we're told we have to break in about 5 minutes. So if he could get it under that, we'll let him start now, otherwise we'll take a break.
Well, let's take a break then.
You want to take a break? This way he doesn't have to rush. All right.
Okay.
I'm told that we have to take a break for the technical people to do some technical things. We're being recorded, and apparently they need a break up there to continue with their work. So with that being said, we're going to take a break. 10-minute break. Not even. 5-minute break.